E põe isso. Podia parar a música depois.
Hey, everybody!
Depois só clica na tela de volta.
Shall we get started?
Does it really start doing? Senão, eu vou fazer hoje à tarde, tá? Eu faço um negócio lá. Se conseguir nem receber, você tá no meu computador, não tá, né? Tá certo aqui?
Acho que tá.
Eu só tenho que parar a música, essa é a minha tarefa. Tá. Só não esquece de clicar aqui. Isso, senão não consegue mexer. Beleza.
Luiz está nas picapes hoje?
Tô no picape hoje.
Okay, so good morning officially. Okay, so in order to help us, calm down and comfortable in our seats and concentrate our thoughts on what we're doing here today, we're going to read a text from the book Jesus in the Home. So many of you know that I love this book. And for those of you who don't know, it's a book that was psychographed by Chico Xavier and dictated by Neil Lúcio. And it's basically stories and accounts of situations that happened during the first Gospels at home, which Jesus had with the 12 apostles, usually at Peter's house, but at some other apostles' house as well. And this one is called The Message of Compassion. Please bear with me, it's a bit long. The Message of Compassion. On a clear night, the gathering at Peter's house was focused on the difficulties of dealing with people. How to spread the values of the gospel? How to instill the same gift and the same blessing in so many diverse minds? After a long fraternal discussion, during which Jesus had remained completely silent, John was concerned about the subject and asked Jesus, Lord, what are we supposed to do when slander shreds our hearts? Take pity on the slanderer and work for the good of all, the heavenly messenger responded, smiling. Because love undoes the darkness of evil, and work destroys disrespectful thoughts. Master, asked James, the son of Zebedee, and how are we to act when someone brutally attacks us? Those who are led by violence, added Christ kindly, must either be crazy or poisoned. Help them regain their senses. Lord, asked Judas with fiery eyes, and when those who offend us are clothed with respectable authority, whether as a prince or a priest, with all the appearance of a conscientious and normal leader, the serpent can hide itself in a bunch of flowers, and there are worms that live in the most beautiful-looking fruit. Those in authority who show that they are violent and cruel are ill. Take pity on them, because they are sleeping in a nightmare of dark illusions, from which they will have to awaken someday. Help them as best as you can, and continue on your way, acting for the happiness of all. Master, and when our house is hit by crime, what am I supposed to do when faced with someone who has betrayed my trust, who has dishonored my name, or who has shed blood in my home? Pity every type of criminal, Jesus explained, and do not desire to break the law that your neighbor has disregarded, because both the persecutor and the criminal in any situation carry a blazing fire within them. One wrong does not right another, and blood does not cleanse blood. Forgive and help. Time is responsible for giving back to everyone in accordance with their own effort. Master, Bartholomew cut in, what are we to do about the judge who condemns us unfairly? Have mercy on him and continue to cooperate for the good of all those who are around you. There is always a higher judge who analyzes those who criticize or condemn, and beyond one horizon, other broader and more luminous horizon unfolds. Lord, asked Thaddeus, what are we supposed to do about the woman we love when she suffers a mortal downfall? Jesus gazed at him tenderly and asked in turn, isn't the inner suffering that afflicts her day and night punishment enough? A balsamic silence fell over the group, and when he saw that the disciples didn't have any more questions, the Lord concluded, if we intend to banish ills from the world, we must cultivate the love that sympathizes with the service that edifies for the happiness of all. Do not deceive yourselves. Time is an inflexible instrument of the law that gives to each of us according to our deeds. No one can hope to right a crime by practicing other crimes, because time changes everything on earth with the fire of suffering or with the ice of death. Let us do our initial prayer. Let's close our eyes, take a deep breath. Dear Father of infinite mercy and patience, dear Jesus, our model and guide, we thank you for the opportunity we have to be here today, either in person or online. We thank you for the lessons that you left us, for the examples that you gave us, which are undeniable, which are clear. Master, may we have the strength to follow on your path, to reflect upon our actions, day and night, all the time, thus becoming better, thus developing the virtues, and learning to love ourselves, then love our neighbors as we love ourselves, and love our Father. May we all leave here today with a little bit of the message we have. May we all be able to apply some of what we get here today in our daily lives, and hopefully make our lives better. Get closer to the promised happiness. So be it. Thank you, Luis.
Um pouquinho.
Okay, so today we have a challenge. We had the same challenge Monday. And the challenge is, this only changes that, but I still have to change mine. So you're gonna be my remote. All right, so I'm gonna try and coordinate, but Monday I was reading from here, hadn't changed there, gonna be confusing. But if you see I'm messing up, please let me know. Okay, so the parable of compassion. And how do I understand the virtue of compassion? Do you think it's possible to misunderstand compassion? Isn't compassion? Come on, I know it's Sunday morning, but wake up, guys. Do you think it's possible to misunderstand it?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. So, we're going to talk more about this at the end. It's just for us to start thinking. The parable of compassion. So, let's take a look at question 625 in the Spirit's book. What is the, see, I knew I was going to do it. What is the most perfect type that God has offered to man as his guide and model?
Jesus.
Exactly. Jesus. Probably the shortest answer in the Spirit's book. Because they usually have a whole lot more to say. And Kardec has a few comments on top.
Yeah.
But this is probably the shortest answer. So the most perfect guide and model for humanity was Jesus, right? And then if we skip one question and we go to 627, and then Kardec asks, since the true laws of God have been taught by Jesus, what is the use of the teachings given by spirits? Have they anything more to teach us? Hasn't Jesus taught us everything? He has taught us everything, hasn't he? Right? As a pure spirit, as an angelic spirit, I don't think he left much to desire here. Then why do we need the Spirit's help with this?
Because we forgot his teachings.
Because he could not say everything that he had to say at that time. So in the 19th century, we have more answers.
Yes. So yes, and a little bit more. It's a pretty long answer. The teachings of Jesus were more often allegoric and conveyed in parables, because he spoke according to the time and place in which he lived. The time has now come. Oh no, yeah, I did it right. The time has now come when the truth must be made intelligible for all. So at his time, he spoke according to the time and place in which he lived. Why? Was humankind stupid at the time? Why couldn't they understand?
They weren't,
In a way,
they
yes.
weren't very morally developed. They were more primitive, less understanding.
Maybe a good expression would be spiritual children. So we were still trying to learn, we were starting to learn more about virtues. We were starting to evolve more morally, as opposed to just in intelligence, right? And the easiest, simplest, best analogy we can have is our own children, like human children, right here, right now. Are they dumb? Gosh, not at all. A lot smarter than we were. However, there's a time for everything, right? Oops, let's move this thing. So when my son was here during the prayer, when my son was 4, I could not get him to understand 60 minutes in an hour, 24 hours in a day, 7 days in a week, 52 weeks in a year. He wanted his birthday to be every month. And why was it taking so long to come? So it's the same thing with us as spirits, right? As spiritual children, we have the potential as a seed within us, but we still need to develop that, and we need time for that. And effort, of course, because time alone doesn't do anything. We need to put some effort into it. But that's why he couldn't say everything at the time as clearly as he definitely could have, because they were not prepared to understand. So he spoke in parables, figuratively. Let's continue with the answer. It is necessary to explain and develop the divine laws, because few among you understand them, and still fewer practice them. Our mission is to try, and he's talking about superior spirits' mission. Our mission is to strike the eyes and ears of all in order to confound pride and to unmask hypocrisy of those who assume the outward appearances of virtue and of religion as a cloak for their turpitudes. We are charged to prepare the reign of good announced by Jesus, to furnish the explanations that will render it possible for men to continue to interpret the law of God according to their passions, or to pervert the meaning of what is holy, a law of love and kindness. Do we do that? Do we pervert the meaning of the laws according to our own convenience? Everybody needs to be compassionate to me. But when it's my turn, whatever.
And can we say that when we pervert is then we create the masks?
Oh, most definitely, yes. Yeah. It's a sophism, and we love that word around here. So it's a sophism. It's when we get a piece of truth, we completely distort it, make it sound logical, but it's in fact a lie. So that's what we do when we put on the mask. We take something that is holy, a law of love and kindness. We pervert it, but it sounds logical when you say it out loud. Right? So now we're gonna see the parable of compassion. Which one do you think it is? Some of you already know. Because there are so many known famous parables. Which one do you think should be this one? All you need to do is look at the screen. Ta-da! So it's the parable of the Good Samaritan. Okay? And this parable is in Luke chapter 10, verses 25 to 37. So first, we're going to read the whole thing through, and then we're going to go back and stop at a few verses and look at some symbols. What we're doing here is an exegesis of this passage. Do you know what is an exegesis? No, not everybody? See, Sunday morning, spiritism, vocabulary, doesn't get any better. An exegesis is a deep analysis of a text or passage, usually religious or biblical, something that goes beyond what we're just reading. It's a deep analysis of it. And the exegesis of this parable was offered to us by Spirit Honório. Okay, he is one of the mentors of Projeto Espiritizar. So Jesus spoke in parables, and these parables are like onions with lots of layers. So at first, the way he spoke was understood by humanity at that time, according to their capacity, according to their abilities. Now, Spiritism brought us things a lot more clearer, and Projeto Espiritizar, Mentor Honório and some other mentors of this project, they are giving us deeper and deeper and deeper. This same parable has another exegesis, okay, which fairly, there he is, with fairly different focus. It's focused on a different virtue, okay? This exegesis focuses on compassion. The other one focuses on humility. So there are two different exegeses with different symbols for some things in a parable. So this exegesis we're going to see here focuses on the virtue of compassion. All right? So we're going to read the whole thing through, and maybe some of you can help me because my throat's getting dry. And then we go back verse by verse, not all of the verses, but some of them have some symbols we want to talk about. Can you help? Can you read that one out loud? Like super duper loud? Yeah.
And behold, a certain lawyer stood up and tested him, saying, Teacher, what shall I do to inherit eternal life?
Can someone help Gabriel?
He said to him, what is written in the law? What is your reading of it?
So he answered and said, You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your might, and your neighbor as yourself.
And he said to him, "You have answered rightly. Do this and you will live."
We're done, right? Bing, bang, boom. Yeah, of course not. But he, wanting to justify himself, and here they're talking about the Pharisee, the doctor of the law, who knew all the Jewish laws, okay? So because the Pharisees and the Sadducees, they were always trying to test Jesus. They were always trying to catch Jesus in a lie or in something they could accuse him of being, against the law or something. So they were always trying him. So the Pharisee, trying to justify himself, said to Jesus, "And who is my neighbor?" Right? Because love your neighbor as yourself. And who is my neighbor? Who should I be loving now?
Then Jesus answered and said, "A certain man went down from Jerusalem to Jericho and fell among thieves, who stripped him of his clothing, wounded him, and departed, leaving him half dead. Now by chance a certain priest came down that road, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. Likewise a Levite, when he arrived at the place, came and looked, and passed by on the other side. But a certain Samaritan, as he journeyed, came where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion. So he went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. And he set him on his own animal, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. On the next day, when he departed, he took out 2 denarii, gave them to the innkeeper, and said to him, "Take care of him, and whatever more you spend, when I come again, I will repay you."
Awesome. Thank you so much for starting. You rocked it. Okay, so now. Oh, sorry. There was more.
So which of these 3 do you think was neighbor to him who fell among the thieves? And he said, "He who showed mercy on him." Then Jesus said to him, "Go and do likewise."
Okay, now we're done. Promise. Okay, so now we have some reflections. We're going to go back to a few verses and look at some of the symbols for these verses to help us understand this parable from the point of view of the virtue of compassion. Everybody on board? Everybody awake? Yeah? Okay, good. Nobody fishing in the same Portuguese? Okay, so there, yeah, okay. So then Jesus answered and said, because remember the doctor of the law asked Jesus about the laws, and Jesus said, "Love your God with all your heart, your mind, and your soul, and love your neighbor as yourself." That was the answer the doctor of the law gave Jesus. Jesus said, "Yeah, you're good. Go. Live like it, and you're fine." And then he goes and he asks again, "But who is my neighbor? Who should I love?" And then Jesus told the story about the man. And now we're gonna see what the symbols in the story Jesus told mean from the point of view of compassion. Then Jesus answered and said, "A certain man went down from Jerusalem to Jericho." Who is that man? He says, a certain man. What do you think man is a symbol for here?
Humanity, humankind?
Yes, but I want more.
More?
Yeah, what kind of man? It's tricky. It is human being in general. Oh, come on. Really? I hate when my animation do that to me. So it's a human being and his or her ego. It's when we believe that we are permanently this personality. It's when I believe all I am, all I ever was, all I ever will be is Renata, Gabriel's mom, admin assistant, born in Brazil, live in Canada. When we believe this is all we ever were, all will ever be, that's us with our ego, with our persona, with this personality of this incarnation. When we don't know, or we forget, or we pretend we don't know that we have had many lives before, and we'll have many after this one. Well, when Tao is already there, because my animation didn't help me at all, and it's the movement of looking within to find one's existential meaning. So a man went down. So the symbols are a human being trying to find him or herself, who they really are, what's their purpose in life, what are they doing here? Am I just Renata, mother to 2 children, divorced admin assistant, or am I more than that? Was I more than that before? Will I be more than this after? Okay? Jerusalem. What do you think Jerusalem could be a symbol for?
Individuality, personality.
Okay. It is related to the human being and their ego. At the time, let's think together, and this might help. What was Jerusalem at the time of Jesus? What kind of city was it?
Holy.
It was a holy city, at least for the Jews. The Romans just saw it as a strategic place for power. But yeah, for religion it was. Was it like a place where you lived a simple life?
Maybe from Jerusalem to Jericho is okay, because I'm here again.
Actually, Jerusalem is a symbol for a luxurious city, the temple, political power. It's a symbol for superficiality. It's a symbol for the Renata who wants, what is it you want? What car is it you want again? A Lamborghini, right? A Cadillac. No, you, not me. I want a Cadillac. You're cooler than me. You change your mind? Of course, yeah, whatever. So, you know, it's the Renata that wants a Cadillac. It's the Gabriel who wants a Porsche, right? Exactly. Superficiality is us, even though we are mortal spirits, we're living in the world for the world. You know, I will only be happy when I have a pair of Manolos. For the guys who don't know, it's a pretty expensive brand of shoes. I'm not even going to Louboutin, I'm happy with the Manolo. Right? So that's the Jerusalem. Okay? So political power. That's the Renata who might stay away from home, like ask their father to look after them, because I need to work more, because I need more power, because I need to be a powerful woman. I need to prove to everybody how good I am. That's that kind of superficiality. And Jericho, in comparison to Jerusalem. Yes, hint, exactly the opposite. Jericho represents the simple city, surrounded by nature, the existential meaning, okay? And the whole idea of going down also has to do with geography. Jerusalem was 2,000 meters above sea level, and Jericho was, I think, 200 meters below sea level. So it's going from that pedestal that sometimes we put ourselves in and going down deep within to try and find ourselves, to try and find our true meaning, our true purpose here. So far, so good? Does it make sense? All right. So this verse talks about a human being, an immortal spirit, trying to find themselves going from superficiality to the existential meaning. Okay, let's keep going. And fell among thieves, who stripped him of his clothing, wounded him, and departed, leaving him half dead. What do you think fall among thieves could mean? It's an action.
Losing wealth.
Pardon me?
Losing wealth.
Losing wealth? In a way, you're kind of close. We're not talking about things, actually.
Oh.
What do this tendency we have to put ourselves in a pedestal, to only think about superficiality, what does that do to us, to the real us, to the essential meaning?
Exposes us.
Yes. So fell among thieves represents the action of being weakened by the tendencies of the sub-personalities. What are these sub-personalities? Or who are the sub-personalities?
Pride.
Or egoic things. Right.
It can be egoic or egotistic. Both are correct. I like to use egotistic. Eric likes egoic. They're both correct. And none of them is used a lot here because the transpersonal psychology hasn't come to Canada yet. Unfortunately, exactly. Okay? Actually, the subpersonalities are exactly the personalities that we've been piling up with all of our existences, right? This Renata is definitely gonna add something to my pure spirit. And my next existence, there will be something from this Renata there as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just like in this Renata here, there is something from my previous existences. So it is the ego, but it's like, adding one to the other, to the other, to the other, right? Remember that in general, in each of our incarnations, we are here to work on what, basically? Put in a very simple way, to progress, how?
Moral development.
Yes, moral development, and usually one or two main virtues, right? Because it's really overwhelming to try and be perfect and develop all the virtues in one short lifespan. So we are here mostly to work on certain virtues. So all of those egotistic feelings, the exacerbated pride, exacerbated vanity, anxiety, perfectionism, right? As I work on those, I bring everything with me, and if I don't work on them, I still bring everything with me as well. So when we insist on staying on that superficiality, what we're doing is we are weakening ourselves. We are weakening our own being because we are worshiping the personality we think we are. When in reality, we're not this personality. We are an immortal spirit, right? And what do you think stripped him and wounded him could mean? Now it's getting a bit more personal. So stripped and wounded. So if we are weakening our own beings by giving in to our subpersonalities and still worshiping egotistic feelings as opposed to working on virtues, what could stripped and wounded mean? Every time when we do something wrong, when we realize we've been doing something wrong for a long time, how do we feel?
Ashamed.
Yep.
Guilty.
So the movements of self-depreciation and guilt. I'm worthless. I'm not worthy of being alive. Right? And in this case, stripped him and wounded him are perfect for those feelings. Because that's what we do. We wound ourselves. We think that self-punishment is going to make it right. But like Jesus said, one crime doesn't right another. Right? Okay, now departed. What could departed mean? That's half of it. You gotta start first. Departed is the tendencies of the subpersonalities to appear and depart all the time. I get out of bed, and today I'm going to be patient. I'm going to drive. I am not going to yell. I am not going to curse. I am not going to step on the gas just to pass someone and look at them like you are annoying me. Right? So when I get up, I am the poster child for patience. The first person who's slow in front of me, I really want to honk, and then I just take it to the left and go and look at them, and then I'm like, oh, didn't I say I wasn't going to do it? I like to pray. It's one of the few times I'm alone is actually when I'm driving in the morning to the train station, and I like to pray at that time. And I have no idea how many times I caught myself interrupting my prayer to be mad at another driver. Right?
One of the things I think sometimes, like if you roll your eyes, you're already failing.
Oh, you mean the thing your mother told you never to do?
Yeah.
And you tell your children not to do, and then you go like,
Don't you think it's already a fail? You're not doing anything. You're not, open your window and say the guy is a loser or something like that. But if you're eye rolling,
the feeling is
already
still there.
Yeah.
It's just a lesser expression of it. Yeah, it's a lesser expression of it. But yes, and what is that? It's the subpersonalities showing up now and then. Peekaboo, here I am. Right? And that's for everything. And that goes back also to the masks we wear. Right? Oh, I'm such a good person. But do not step on my toe. I am very forgiving, but you only betray me once. Does it even make sense? Right? So again, it's the tendencies of the subpersonalities to show up now and then. Have that. It's the emotional state of existential emptiness. Okay, so let's try and look at this as a picture. So the subpersonalities end up weakening our genes. We make mistakes, and then we self-depreciate ourselves. We depreciate ourselves. We feel guilty. And those things come and go and come and go and come and go. And I still haven't figured out who I am, what I'm doing here. What is the inevitable result? Existential emptiness. It's that feeling of, as we say in Portuguese, swimming and dying at the beach. Right? Because we're trying, and we don't succeed. And we only make mistakes, and we punish ourselves for that. And all it brings us is existential emptiness. Right? So let's see how we get out of that cycle. Later, we still have a few more symbols before that. Jesus will give us the recipe, but let's see a few more symbols before that. Now, by chance, a certain priest came down that road. And when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. By chance. What can by chance be?
It's interesting because I don't believe in by chance.
Well, spiritists should never believe
Yeah.
in chance.
Yeah.
But what could it symbolize? Having that in mind, what could it symbolize?
Unexpectedly, or not in a planned manner, or
Not in a planned manner actually works out with what the symbol is. So it's the superficial contact with existential questions of life. So this by chance is how we usually deal with essential issues. You know, the whole roller coaster thing. If something happens, we just dismiss it. It happened, whatever. Oh, I made a mistake. Who cares? Right? Makes no difference. And I keep making the same mistake again and again and again. And whatever. I just dismiss it. I don't reflect on it. I don't reflect, why am I making the same mistakes again and again? Instead of saying whatever, I don't stop to think about the mistakes I made. Eventually, the pain of all those mistakes will catch up with us and will become something. But it's basically how we deal with the questions of life when we do not reflect upon our mistakes. Certain priest, the mask of Puritanism. Why? What do you think a priest here would be the mask of Puritanism? If we're talking about mistakes. Who is a priest? No? Okay. A priest is supposed to be a servant of whom? Yes, so a priest is supposed to be a servant of God, right? But in this parable, why? Well, if we think about what's happening in several religions today, it's actually fairly simple to answer that one. So why the mask of Puritanism? Because they should be a servant of God. But is that what they truly are?
No, because they are also.
And we're not talking about all priests, okay, guys? This is just symbols. We're talking about symbols, all right?
Mm-hmm.
Please, Carol.
Because they are also immortal spirits working in their evolution, and also, and this is something we have to remember, because they are priests, but it doesn't mean that they are perfect.
Exactly. And here, in this parable, read the story Jesus told us. Would this priest be a servant of God?
No.
Definitely not. And this Puritanism is talking about appearances, the mask of the nice person. I'm a nice person. I'm a good person. Okay? And then when something happens to us, why is God doing this to me? I don't deserve it. This is unfair. Passed by on the other side. It is the masked movement of denial of any weaknesses of the ego. It was a mistake. I didn't do it on purpose. It's not my fault. And Canadians have a very special way of saying it. I'm sorry. Everything is I'm sorry.
Yeah.
What's the problem with I'm sorry, Gabriel?
Doesn't fix anything.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah.
I know I've said it too many times.
Right? So when we truly feel there's nothing wrong with saying I'm sorry, when it's heartfelt, and when we're trying to fix it, we're trying to repair the mistake. But saying sorry as a way of denying that I'm making a mistake,
Washing.
and yeah, exactly, I was gonna do it right now,
Yeah.
right? Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm done. I'm forgiven, all is good, it was not my fault. We're fine. For example, with our families. We make the same mistake again and again, and we say, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna do it next time. And then we're going to do it again. Since we don't believe in chance, are we put in the same family by chance? Definitely not. And our family is actually either back there or still here, because when we go and see them after 3 days, right?
Yeah.
They are still our best laboratory. They are still our best opportunities, right? Either the family back in Brazil or anybody who has immediate family here, who has children or partners, right? So they are our best opportunities to develop our virtues. Nobody demands more patience than family.
And children.
Well, they are family, right? Aren't you my family?
I think so.
Well, I was there when you were born. I swear you were. Okay. So when we don't want to deal with our essential being, when we don't want to deal with our mistakes in a healthy way, we deny them. Because we can deal with our mistakes in an unhealthy way, which is the self-deprecation, the guilt. That's the unhealthy way. And the healthy way is to reflect upon our mistakes. But when we completely deny them, the result cannot be the best. Likewise, a Levite, when he arrived at the place, came and looked and passed by on the other side. In order to understand this, we need to understand what is a Levite. Does anybody know what is a Levite?
I don't know what Levi is.
Okay, so it's a member of the tribe of Levi. Ta-da!
Which means.
Still nothing.
Okay, Levites were actually what we call, oh gosh, I don't know what it's called in English. The boys, the guys who help tidy up the altar before the mass, what are they called? Yeah, in Portuguese, coroinha, I can't remember. But they are the
altar
priests.
boys.
Yeah, altar boys. They are the priest helpers. They are responsible for making the altar spotless, perfect, everything in the right place, everything perfect for the priest. Right? That's what a Levite does. So what do you think it's a symbol for? It's a mask for?
Perfectionism.
I knew you would know it. So yes, a Levite is the mask of perfectionism. Okay? And then we say, but isn't perfectionism something good?
Not always.
Why not?
Because people make mistakes.
Yes, as we're supposed to, that's how we learn. The perfectionist is, in a way, a person who is a pseudo-master. The perfectionist does not want to make a mistake because they don't want to have to fix it. They want it done right the first time, so they don't have to go back and fix it.
Sometimes they want to follow Jesus and they want to not like Jesus, so they try to their best.
Yeah, good intention, but wrong direction. So it's not, the intention is great. We just need to work on how we do it. Instead of the perfectionism, accepting that we are apprentices of life. Dealing with the mistakes in a healthy way. Reflecting upon them instead of feeling guilty and then going and doing it again. Right? Okay, so according to Google, a member of the tribe of Levi, one of the 10 tribes of Israel, and a descendant of Levi, especially one appointed to assist the priests in the temple or tabernacle. I love this. Tabernacle, thank you. See? And I even said it wrong. Thank you. We have this deal. I fixed his grammar, he fixes my pronunciation. But a certain Samaritan as he journeyed, came where he was. And when he saw him, he had compassion. So again, in order to understand this, we need to understand what is a Samaritan. What is a Samaritan? It's another of the 10 tribes of Israel, I can tell you that, just like Levi's tribe. But what else is a Samaritan? In order to understand like the effect that this has on the doctor of the law who was arguing with Jesus, we need to understand what is a Samaritan. Does anybody remember? This is actually in the beginning of the Gospel according to Spiritism. In the introduction, there's a part that talks about historic facts, and it explains who were the Pharisees, the Sadducees, all of these people that we see in the Bible, and it's just words. But if we don't understand their significance at the time, we miss some of the meaning of the parables. A Samaritan was one of the tribes, but they were actually at constant war with the Pharisees and the Sadducees. They only accept the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible. They did not accept anything that was added after. They only followed the laws of Moses. And according to the Pharisees and Sadducees, the Samaritans were considered heretics.
They didn't like them.
Hereges. Eles eram hereges, excomungados.
But they were good people.
Well, that's not the point. They were like any other people. The point of their disagreement was only religious. There were good Samaritans and bad Samaritans, good Pharisees, bad Pharisees, good Sadducees, bad Sadducees, just like nowadays. But their disagreement, their war, was based on disagreement about religion. And they hated each other. You know, a little thing like what's going on in Brazil right now? There are good people who defend one candidate, and there are good people who defend the other, and bad who defend both. But the base of their disagreement made them hate each other.
Like they didn't believe in what Jesus was saying.
Well, the Jews in general, that's why they crucified him. Some of them understood he was the Messiah, but most of them didn't, because they expected a warrior Messiah that would free them from the Romans. And when Jesus came teaching love, they were like, this is not our Messiah.
So they didn't believe.
The Samaritans, no, not at all.
Just the Old Testament.
Yes, it was, and just the first 5 books of the Old Testament. Okay, so they were like very strict. They even ended up building their own temple because they didn't want to go to Jerusalem for the religious parties. They didn't even want to party with the other Jewish. Okay, so this helps us understand, because that's the doctor of the law who's arguing with Jesus. He is a Pharisee, so he has deep hatred for all Samaritans. And then Jesus tells him that a Samaritan comes and helps him. So do you understand how hard it is for the guy to accept?
Yeah.
Because in his mind, there's no good Samaritan. Nobody who defends Bolsonaro, nobody who defends Haddad could be a good person, ever.
So he doesn't believe in the good intention.
Exactly, because by principle, Samaritans are bad and that's it. Right? So this helps us understand how shocking it is for the doctor of the law who is arguing with Jesus. Right? There we go. So the Samaritan here means, but the Samaritan helped. So the Samaritan is the essential being, the inner Christ that we are in essence, and that emanates, that emanates the strength of God's love. Okay? So yes, we do use the same lectures in English and in Portuguese, of course. So here, the Samaritan isn't a Samaritan. Okay, it's a symbol for the essential being, not because it's a Samaritan and all Samaritans are good, but because he was the one who had compassion. He was the one who helped. So that's why he is the symbol of the essential being, the inner Christ, who will come to the rescue no matter who you are, right? Journey, it's the essential movement of self-knowledge in search for the existential meaning. Remember the go down? So to go down, to look deep inside and reflect. So the journey is a symbol for this search, for this attempt to find our essential meaning. And the word couldn't be more perfect, because it is a journey. It's not a switch we turn on and off. Like when we get out of bed in the morning and say, today I'm going to be the picture of patience. Okay? It's a process. And it's a very long process of centuries or thousands of years. Came where he was. Movements of humility and meekness before here means perante, before one's own weaknesses. So it's accepting my weaknesses as an apprentice without feeling guilty, without self-deprecation, and without dismissing the problem. Because we either go one extreme or the other. It's either nothing or the end of the world. Right? So the king where he was is actually the movement of being humble and meek before our weaknesses. Understanding, accepting, and reflecting on how we can change, how we can make it better. Compassion. It's the movement of loving, a movement of loving self-knowledge before also means mediante one's own weaknesses. So loving my knowledge. Because sometimes we have either ignorance is a bliss, so I don't want self-knowledge, I don't want the responsibility. Because once I know, I'm way more responsible. Once I know that what I'm doing is wrong, I'm 100 times more responsible for making that mistake. So we need to love that self-knowledge, accept it, embrace it, as well as the responsibility that comes with it. Right? Make sense? Every time we realize one of our flaws, at least 5 minutes.
Okay.
At least.
No problem.
Maybe a few more. So once we identify a flaw or defect or whatever you want to call that we have, instead of sweeping it under the rug, I recognize, and there we go again, my favorite part, the technique. So we recognize that we have that problem. We accept we have that problem. We reflect on that problem. We decide to act on it. And we actually act. We actually do it. Right? Okay. So he went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring oil and wine. No. Here. Okay, so went to him. It's a movement. So it's the compassionate movement of drawing closer to each egotistic feeling. What does that mean? It's accepting that, yes, I am impatient. So instead of trying to kill the problem, I embrace the problem and say, yep, I am impatient. How can we improve this? If I say I am not impatient in denial, is anything going to change? If I say I'm impatient, I'm horrible, I'm terrible, I'm going to give my kids up for adoption because I don't have patience with them. Am I fixing anything? Is it going to change? No. So what do I need to do? I need to bring the impatience closer to me, reflect upon it, and try and change it. And try and transform my impatience into patience. Is it easy? No. Is it difficult? No. trabalhoso. It's a lot of hard work. It's exercising patience. No virtue is passive. None whatsoever. The virtue of being meek is extremely active. It requires decision and action and reflection, right? All virtues are extremely active, never passive. Bandaged his wounds. So it's loving, self-care, é o autocuidado amoroso, okay? Not loving as an adjective, not as a verb. Loving self-care with each emotional pain we feel. Don't ignore the emotional pain you feel. Don't put it in a drawer and close it and lock and throw the key away. Okay? Recognize you're feeling the emotional pain. Reflect on it. Try to understand it. If we don't work on our pains like this, we're just setting ourselves up for more and more pain. Because we're going to keep making the same mistakes. And everything is going to continue in that vicious cycle. And then oil and wine. So it's the pureness of purpose, the pureness of virtue. At the time, of course, they didn't have antibiotics or antiseptics or anything. So especially olive oil was used to clean wounds because it is an antiseptic. Okay? So that's why it's the symbol for pureness, because you use it to cleanse. And some properties of the grape that can be found in wine and also in grape juice, they have antioxidants and they help speed the scarring process. So they help heal faster.
What's the alcohol?
Yes, the alcohol also helps as an antiseptic as well. All right. Okay, we're getting there. So after looking at all these symbols that we understand, Jesus is going to give us the recipe. Because so far we understood that we need to be apprentices of life, that we make mistakes, instead of repeating them again, we need to reflect, transform our egotistic feelings into virtues. All that, is everybody with me so far? How do we fix it? That's the key, right? Okay, Jesus gave us the recipe. Then he asks the doctor back. After telling the parable, he asks the doctor. He doesn't give the answer. He asks. So which of these three do you think was neighbor to him who fell among the thieves? Because remember, the question is, then who is my neighbor? Love your neighbor as yourself. And then he asks, who is my neighbor? Because in his mind, loving a Samaritan, that's a stretch, right? So Jesus asks him, which of these three do you think was neighbor to him who fell among thieves? And he said, he who showed mercy on him. Notice, he couldn't even say the word Samaritan. He didn't say the Samaritan who helped. He said he. Because he couldn't even go there. And Jesus says, go and do likewise. So the recipe is to do the same as the Samaritan did. On a journey for self-knowledge, self-discovery, bringing our egotistic feelings closer, and trying to transform them into virtues. That's the simple recipe. That's the heading of the recipe. Someone else gave us a very detailed one. Who was it? In the Spirit's book. 2 or 3 minutes. Do the kids have something for us, Mon?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. Okay.
What's your question?
My question is, Jesus gave us the overall. But someone in the Spirit's book gave us a very detailed recipe, a very detailed guide, or like Luis says, roadmap to get there.
Spirit of truth.
Santo Agostinho.
St. Louis.
Luiz, come on up.
Santo Agostinho.
Saint Augustine. In question 919, Kardec asks, so like, how can we improve ourselves? How can we be better? And the spirits answer, sage philosopher used to say, know thyself. Conhece a ti mesmo. And then Kardec, never happy with these answers, wants to know how. And then Saint Augustine, in question 919a, gives us a very detailed description where he says, do like I did when I was younger. And I recommend everybody reads the answer. Okay, because it's a long one, like I said, it's detailed. But basically, reflection. At the end of each day, when he lied in bed, he would pass his whole day through his mind and think of all the situations that happened and try to reflect. Could I have done anything better than what I did or how I did? Did any of my actions cause any harm to my neighbors? If so, what could I have done different? And if I am not sure if my actions were harmful or not, there's another fail-proof method. Would I like to be the receiver of my own actions? So I highly recommend questions 919 and 919a.
You have to treat others the way
You would like to be treated. Exactly. That's the fail-proof one. Because don't we sometimes say, nah, it's okay. The person, like their feelings were hurt by my joke because they didn't get it. Oh, they're just sensitive. It's me. Would I like to be the receiver of my own joke? Am I treating the person the way I would like to?
like an exercise, and then you start like feeling the response, and then it's like you want to do that with your heart, but you feel that response, and so you have the mind inside of you, right?
Yeah, and we always we like to say, usually in a negative we say we reap what we sow, nós colhemos o que plantamos. However, if we sow good, we are going to reap good too, right? It's not just for mistakes, it's for good actions too. And once we start receiving that goodness and you feel the goodness, you're like, okay, this is the right path, I want to stay here.
You don't feel that all the time.
It's amazing. Any questions, any comments? Thank you very much for listening, and I think the kids got something for us. Go ahead, Luan.
Let's go, kids!
It's all yours.